They thought they could corner you, they believed they would win their game. But there came a moment when you not only showed your strength, but you revealed the truth to everyone like fire. You lit the fire in front of everyone, and then you calmly took a sip of water as if nothing had happened. That is real strength, real confidence. While they looked on in amazement, you continued to move forward on your own path with serenity and determination. Because the true, chosen one starts the fire and then walks away peacefully. Now everyone is talking, how did he do it? How did he stay so relaxed? Get ready, write 33 in the comments now. Don't just be a spectator, be a part of the story. With your support, we will become a huge family of 5,000 people. Subscribe now, turn on notifications and join us, because the real impact starts now. Picture a field right before dawn, dark, quiet, not a sign of what's coming. At first glance, it looks like nothing's changed for miles. But under the surface, seeds that were planted long ago are quietly swelling, roots stretching deeper, drawing up strength from soil that remembers every drop of rain. That's how spiritual truth works in your life. Quietly, persistently, with a patience that can't be rushed. And just like those seeds, your moment of breakthrough comes slowly. So softly at first, it's easy to miss if you're only looking for fireworks. It's amazing how life will send us signals that at first seem like just random noise. Maybe you think, that's just another ordinary day, another small irritation, another surprise setback. But over time, the pattern starts to show. What you once dismissed as coincidence, the phone call that came at the right moment, the friend who showed up when you were about to give up, the closed door that actually protected you from harm, turns out to be part of a tapestry so perfectly woven, only God himself could be the author. There's a kind of wisdom that reveals itself only with time. Folks might look back and say, I thought that was just bad luck, just another problem. But hindsight shows that every step, even the missteps, was gently steering you toward truth. The very people who tried to trip you up find themselves tripping over their own feet. Those who once whispered against you, who hoped to see you falter, end up tangled in their own snares. It's not revenge, it's just the way the universe balances things out. The current always brings back what's been cast into its flow. And consequences, they don't always march in with blaring trumpets. Sometimes they travel quietly, arriving just as sure as the sunrise. While some folks think they're getting away with something, life is patiently keeping score. Choices made in secret gather weight, little by little, until one day the scale tips. That's when the truth can no longer be hidden, and what was sown in shadows is harvested in the light. No matter how clever the plot, there's a deeper wisdom at work, one that never sleeps, never loses track, never lets anything slip by. For those who walk in the dark, believing they've outsmarted everyone, the way ahead feels wide and easy at first. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the path begins to narrow. It's like walking through a fog that grows heavier with every step. At first, they don't notice how close the ground is to giving way, how each decision made out of fear or pride has been digging a deeper hollow beneath their feet. By the time they realize it, the abyss is already at their toes, a pit not dug by an enemy, but by the shovel of their own choices. But what a comfort it is to know that nothing is wasted, not the waiting, not the tears, not even the times you felt left out or misunderstood. Every moment you stayed true to what you knew was right, every time you forgave instead of lashing out, every small kindness offered in secret, those are the seeds God never forgets. When the tide finally rises, when the light breaks through, it's not just a victory for you, it's a testimony to everyone watching that spiritual laws are more real than anything you can touch or see. There are seasons when you wonder if anyone notices how hard you're trying. Maybe you've stood your ground while others laughed, kept quiet while others accused, chose patience while others demanded payback. Sometimes it feels like you're the only one playing by the rules, the only one believing that good comes back around. But let me tell you, chosen one, God keeps better records than any bookkeeper on earth. Every honest act, every private battle, every decision to keep your spirit clean when it would have been easier to get dirty, that's all being tallied up for a harvest that can't be denied. And the beautiful thing is, even those who schemed against you can't escape the outcome of their own actions. The world might call it karma, but we know it's just divine order, what you send out is what comes back. People may spend years thinking they're building something on solid ground, only to find out the foundation was sand all along. When the storms come, when the truth finally comes knocking, those walls fall fast. But for the ones who chose faith over fear, peace over drama, hope over resentment, the reward is a peace that doesn't depend on what's happening around you. You become like that seed in the soil, quietly preparing for your day in the sun. The world may not see your roots growing, but God sees every bit of it. And when your season comes, you'll rise up strong, untouched by the chaos that brought others down. Unlock the doors of ancient faith. Subscribe for new episodes every week. This is how divine justice operates, not with noise and spectacle, but with perfect timing and gentle power. It's never about getting even or seeing anyone destroyed. It's about lifting up what was pressed down, healing what was broken, restoring what was stolen. And when you stand in that victory, you won't feel bitterness. You'll feel gratitude for every hard lesson, every lonely night, every tear that watered the seeds of your future. So if it seems like you've been overlooked, if you feel like the tides have been rising and you've just been waiting for your moment, take heart. The dawn always comes, the roots always break through, the truth always finds its voice. The hands that tried to hold you back will find they were only holding themselves in place. And as the day breaks, it will be clear to everyone. The wisdom guiding your life is greater than any scheme, stronger than any opposition, and more faithful than any friend or foe. This is your promise. Your perseverance is not in vain. Every quiet sacrifice is gathering interest, every small act of goodness is building momentum, and every time you refuse to stoop to someone else's level, you built a future that's rising up to meet you now. Let the tide come. Let the light break. Because when God moves, no power on earth can stop the harvest He has prepared for those who remain true. Imagine trying to walk across a frozen pond just after the first winter frost. Ice so thin that every careful step could be the one that cracks it open. You move slow, barely breathing, afraid that even the sound of your own heartbeat might disturb the fragile surface. That's what it's like when you're living in an atmosphere of tension, where every word has to be measured, every action considered, because one wrong move might send everything crashing into cold, dark water. So many nights are spent in that delicate balancing act, hoping that silence can pass for peace. But deep down, the soul knows the difference between true harmony and simply avoiding disaster. It's like holding your breath underwater. Sure, everything looks calm on the surface, but your spirit is crying out for air. The cost of keeping the peace, when it's built on eggshells and anxiety, is that you trade your own voice just to keep things from breaking. It's exhausting, tiptoeing around moods, overthinking every phrase, trying to read the weather in someone's face before you dare to speak. You become so attuned to another's reactions that you start losing track of your own needs and dreams. The desire to avoid conflict becomes a kind of prison, one you build yourself, brick by brick, every time you swallow your truth and pretend everything's fine. But here's what life and faith teach us. Peace that's built on fear isn't peace at all. It's just a shadow, an illusion that vanishes the moment you shine a little light on it. That false calm is always ready to shatter, no matter how carefully you try to hold it together. True peace isn't quiet because of tension, it's quiet because of trust. It can stand a little noise, a little disagreement, even a little truth-telling, because it's rooted in love, not in fear of making waves. There are those who master the art of keeping everything on the surface smooth, never raising their voice, never disagreeing, always trying to please. But under that glossy stillness, the water is churning with all the things left unsaid and all the dreams left on hold. People think they're keeping the family, the job, the friendship together, but really, they're just postponing the inevitable moment when the ice gives way. The most loving thing you can do for your own soul is to recognize when you're skating on thin ice and step back onto solid ground. God never meant for you to live in a state of constant anxiety, holding your breath, afraid that your true self might be too much. The world may reward you for your politeness, for your ability to smooth things over, but God honors you for your honesty, your courage, and your willingness to speak the truth in love, even if it shakes things up. And let's be honest, that kind of bravery doesn't always bring applause. Sometimes, when you finally let the truth out, folks might get upset. The calm may break, old arguments might rise up, but here's the blessing. When the dust settles, you'll find out who was really there for you and who was just there for the performance. Real peace can weather a little storm. It doesn't disappear when things get honest. Looking back, you can see how those quiet, anxious nights, those times you walked on spiritual tiptoes, were actually growing your wisdom. You learned discernment. You developed compassion. You discovered that harmony that costs you your dignity isn't really harmony at all. And when the time comes to stand tall and speak from the heart, you'll be ready, because you've already survived the silence. Don't be afraid to trade false peace for real healing. The world may prefer a smooth surface, but God is in the business of deep waters. The peace He gives doesn't crack under pressure. It carries you across, steady and strong. The next time you feel yourself shrinking, biting your tongue, or hiding your truth just to avoid a ripple, remember, you were made for open fields, not frozen ponds. Step out of the tension and into the freedom of real, lasting peace. It's like trying to walk through a field covered in morning mist. You think you see solid ground, but each step might reveal a pit hidden beneath the grass. You move slowly, trusting the familiar path, but sometimes what looks like safety is actually a carefully camouflaged net. That's how compromise works in the spiritual journey. On the outside, every little agreement, every sure, that's fine, seems harmless. You believe you're keeping the peace, sidestepping danger, keeping the road smooth for everyone else. But after a while, you start to notice the pattern. Every step you gave up for calm is a step that took you further from your own truth. So many times, what begins as a simple favor, a shrug, a let's not make this a big deal, slowly builds into a pattern of self-erasure. Those little nods and silent agreements begin to map out the boundaries of a prison you never meant to build. You look up one day and realize you've learned how to dance around trouble, not by moving freely, but by learning someone else's choreography. It feels safe at first, but that safety is an illusion. It's a fence built from invisible wires, a maze where every exit seems to lead you back to the starting point. What's most surprising is how normal it feels for a while. You get so used to second-guessing your own needs, so skilled at reading the room, that you stop noticing how small you've made yourself. And those little bargains? They become invisible tripwires. You start to sense that you're not really living anymore, just avoiding the next explosion, the next conflict, the next guilt trip. But deep inside, the spirit begins to stir. That still, small voice won't let you settle for a life spent tiptoeing through someone else's minefield. There comes a moment, maybe quiet, maybe dramatic, when you realize the cage was never locked. The boundaries you thought were for your protection were actually just holding you back from your true calling. And that's when freedom begins. You stop dancing to the music of other people's expectations. You start moving to the rhythm God placed in your soul. Suddenly, the old traps lose their power, because you can see them for what they are, obstacles meant to keep you from shining. But a chosen one doesn't live in a web of fear. They break free, step into their own light, and let the world adjust to their true presence. Those old agreements and quiet compromises? They lose their grip when you remember who you really are. You weren't made to shrink, to hide, to dim your light for anyone's comfort. You were created to stand tall, speak with clarity, and walk confidently into every place God sends you. So if you find yourself waking up in that misty field, wondering how you got there, don't be discouraged. The moment you see the pattern is the moment you start to break it. The path to freedom may be hidden, but it's always there, waiting for the one bold enough to claim it. God is faithful to lead you out, one brave step at a time. And when you look back, you'll see, every pit, every snare, every narrow escape was just a lesson preparing you for the wide open spaces ahead. No more living behind invisible fences. No more dancing on eggshells. This is your time to move with purpose, to live out loud, and to claim the wide, beautiful territory prepared for you. Think of a mighty tree that starts to lean, not from a sudden storm, but because each passing season, a bit of soil is quietly washed away from its roots. Day by day, rain and wind steal a handful of earth, barely enough to notice at first. But over time, the tree's strength begins to falter, not because of what's above ground, but because what held it firm below has slowly disappeared. That's how compromise and self-shrinking work on the soul, subtle, silent, but powerful. It usually doesn't start with a big decision. It's just a little hesitation, a moment where you hold your tongue, a day you tuck your own needs away to keep the peace. Each time, it seems harmless, a small price to pay for a smoother day, an easier conversation. But those small prices begin to add up, just like grains of soil slipping from under that tree. After a while, you find yourself feeling less steady, less bold, less like the person you were created to be. Before you know it, the foundation of your confidence, your truth, your God-given light has been chipped away. The room may be brighter for someone else, but for you, the warmth is gone. You're not shining because you're fulfilled, you're dimming just to keep the shadows from growing restless. And the sad part is, no matter how much you give up, it's never enough for those who thrive on seeing you play small. The instinct God placed in you, your gut sense of what's right, your passion, your joy, gets traded for a carefully crafted mask. You find yourself agreeing with things you don't believe, supporting choices that don't sit right with your spirit, all because you're trying to belong. But the cost is steep. With every quiet surrender, a little more of your true self is covered over, and the roots that once anchored you start to feel loose. Here's the truth. The people who expect you to constantly bend and shrink are never satisfied. The more you give, the more they ask. The more you fade, the brighter they want to shine. It becomes a toll you keep paying, hoping for acceptance that never fully arrives. And yet, that longing to belong is holy. It's just being pointed in the wrong direction. Real belonging doesn't ask you to disappear. True community, true friendship, true love, these are places where your light is welcome, not feared. Your voice is valued, not silenced. God designed you with a spark that's meant to be seen, not hidden. When you start standing firm again, letting your roots sink deep, you'll find that not everyone celebrates your return to strength. But the ones who matter will cheer you on. The process of reclaiming lost ground might take time. Sometimes, you have to go back and fill in the places where self-doubt dug holes, where old stories made you question your worth. But as you let God restore those foundations, one prayer, one bold word, one honest step at a time, you'll find yourself growing steadier, taller, more resilient. Let the slow erosion stop today. Let your heart reclaim its soil. Speak your truth, not to please others, but because that's how your soul grows strong. Shine your light, not for applause, but because it's your calling. The more you honor the person God created you to be, the less power the world's demands will have over you. The best days are not behind you, but ahead, rooted in purpose, fed by faith, and anchored in a love that doesn't require you to shrink. That's the life of a chosen one, steady, shining, and standing tall, no matter how long the storms have raged. It's like watching someone muddy a clear stream, handful by handful, until the water that once reflected the sky is so clouded you can't see your own hand beneath the surface. At first, the changes are subtle, a little silt here, a swirl of confusion there. But over time, the whole pool gets murky, and the truth, once obvious, becomes almost impossible to find. This is how some folks operate when they want to rewrite a story for their own advantage. Instead of owning up to their actions, they slip quietly into the role of the misunderstood, the unfairly treated, the constant victim. With practiced words and sorrowful sighs, they cast themselves as the injured party, and people start to gather around them, eager to show sympathy and lend support. Are you a story lover or a truth seeker? Subscribe and be both. What's dangerous is how gently this happens. Like fog rolling in at dawn, it creeps into the minds of those who were once sure of what they saw. Old friends begin to hesitate, not sure whose side to take. Trusted supporters fall silent, unsure what's true anymore. The manipulator's version spreads not with loud declarations but with whispers, rumors, subtle tilts of the head, and carefully chosen pauses. Before you know it, the ground you were standing on feels unsteady. The allies you once counted on fade into the background, replaced by a chorus of doubt. People you thought would always have your back start to look at you differently, as if they can't quite remember what really happened. The original truth is buried beneath layers of someone else's pain, their performance, their retelling of events. It's a spiritual sleight of hand. The old story is replaced bit by bit with a new one, polished and sympathetic, until even you begin to question your memory. The world suddenly looks at you through a distorted lens, and you're left holding the weight of someone else's story, trying to prove what's real in a room full of shifting shadows. But here's the thing. No matter how convincing the performance, the truth doesn't disappear. It might go underground for a while, hidden beneath misunderstanding and mistrust, but it never loses its power. God keeps the record straight, even when the world goes crooked. And those who twist the script may win sympathy for a season, but eventually, the stream clears, the fog lifts, and the real story comes shining through. If you find yourself surrounded by confusion, wondering why the people you trusted seem to have vanished, remember, it's not a reflection of your worth or your truth. It's a sign that you've walked into a spiritual battle where clarity is your greatest weapon. Stay steady. Hold on to what you know in your soul. The day is coming when the waters will settle, the clouds will part, and every lost truth will be restored, clean, bright, and undeniable for all to see. Imagine a house built with open doors and sunlit windows, a place meant for laughter and warmth, a true sanctuary. But then, bit by bit, invisible hands start rearranging the walls, moving the furniture when you're not looking. One day, you wake up and realize what was once a home has become a labyrinth, where the exit keeps shifting and the windows are shuttered. You're still surrounded by the faces you love, but the air feels heavy and the way out is always just out of reach. That's how subtle and powerful the machinery of manipulation can be. It doesn't need to storm the front gate. It quietly changes the blueprints from within. People you once leaned on, the ones you thought would always be safe, begin to act as unwitting messengers for someone else's agenda. Family gatherings turn into battlegrounds of unspoken tension, and old friends start echoing lines you know they didn't write themselves. Empathy, that precious gift God placed inside you, gets rerouted like water diverted from a stream. Instead of nourishing the roots of genuine connection, it swirls around in confusion, filling every room with uncertainty. The more you give, the deeper the maze becomes, and the harder it is to find your way back to solid ground. Your kindness, once a strength, gets tangled in obligations you never agreed to, binding your hands and feet in invisible ropes. It's easy to lose sight of your own needs when your compassion is being weaponized. Every time you try to reach for clarity, the walls seem to close in a little tighter. The very qualities that make you loving and loyal, your care, your faithfulness, your willingness to understand, get twisted into knots that keep you circling the same questions, never finding answers. This is no accident. Manipulators know that the best way to control a heart is to turn its own gifts against it. They don't have to shout or force, they just redirect. And before you know it, what was a sanctuary has become a maze, where every step forward feels like another turn in the wrong direction. But here's the promise. No maze is endless when God is your guide. He sees the walls you can't see. He hears the prayers you whisper in confusion. And just when you think you're too lost to ever find your way, He opens a door no one else can close. You were never meant to live trapped by love. You were meant to thrive in it. If you're feeling bound by the very qualities that make you special, take heart. The day is coming when every hidden wall will fall, every maze will unravel, and the sanctuary of your soul will be restored to light and freedom. What the enemy twisted, God will untangle. What manipulation confused, divine clarity will set straight. And in that day, your empathy and care will once again become the gifts that lead others, not into bondage, but into blessing and belonging. Think about how diamonds are made. They don't appear on the surface, sparkling and perfect. No, they start deep underground, just lumps of coal under intense heat and pressure. Years pass, storms rage, the earth shifts, and what seemed ordinary, what seemed worthless, begins to transform. That's the quiet miracle. The very pressure that threatened to destroy the coal is what forges the diamond within. That's the spiritual story of anyone who's ever faced loss, setback, or betrayal. See, life doesn't end at disappointment. In fact, those losses are what God uses to mold strength and character that couldn't be built any other way. Every defeat you thought would break you is actually shaping you, carving out space for more wisdom, more grace, more depth than you ever dreamed you could hold. When people try to hold you back, when pain seems to pile up, it's easy to wonder if you'll ever catch a break. But what the world calls failure heaven calls foundation. Every scar on your spirit becomes a lesson. Every hardship that threatened to crush you is actually fuel for the fire of your resilience. Like the diamond, your value and your shine aren't reduced by the heat. You're being refined, step by step. It's not the loud, dramatic moments that make or break a chosen one. It's the quiet, steady accumulation of days spent choosing hope over despair, kindness over anger, and faith over fear. Those are the moments God counts as victory, the building blocks of a testimony so real, so raw, that when your breakthrough finally arrives, nobody can deny its power. This kind of breakthrough isn't just for show. It becomes a beacon, radiating hope in every direction. People around you start to notice, how did she get through that? How did he come out stronger? The answer isn't found in never falling. It's found in rising again and again, trusting that the pain is part of the process. God never wastes a hurt. Every loss you've endured, every tear you've cried, becomes the raw material he uses to write a story that only you can live. The world may see scars, but heaven sees signatures, signs of survival, marks of transformation. Your pain becomes power, not just for you, but for anyone who watches you keep standing when others would have given up. So don't despise the seasons that stretched you, the losses that hurt you, or the failures that humbled you. They're not wasted, they're woven into your purpose. When the time is right, your breakthrough will come, not as a gentle breeze, but as a wave of truth and victory that can't be contained. And every hardship, every loss, every moment that felt like the end will be revealed as the very thing that carried you straight into your destiny. Unseen forces are always keeping track, tallying the unseen exchanges and weighing every hidden act. False victories achieved through deception accumulate unseen debts, and the universe quietly recalibrates, preparing a restitution that few expect. The balance is not always visible, but it is inexorable, gathering strength until the scales tip in undeniable ways. Attempts to control destiny through ritual or cunning are ultimately futile. The more desperate the effort to contain another's light, the more swiftly fate corrects the imbalance. The designs meant to hold others back serve only to hasten the unraveling of the very fabric they tried to manipulate. Intentions set in secret become the cords that bind the hands of those who tie them. Even the most sophisticated attempts to conceal wrongdoing are susceptible to collapse. Tools once used to monitor, manipulate, or restrict are suddenly repurposed, their secrets exposed by new eyes and their hidden records brought to light. The infrastructure of control, once considered impenetrable, proves fragile in the face of a higher order, leaving nothing shielded for long. When guidance and protection vanish, an unfamiliar vulnerability takes root. The safety net is withdrawn, and those who once moved with confidence discover their resources gone. The spiritual strength once taken for granted evaporates, and the reality of isolation settles in, a silence no ritual or plea can reverse. A reckoning sometimes takes form in the most tangible of ways. Health falters, explanations fail, and decline accelerates for reasons that resist understanding. The body becomes a stage for the final act of consequences long deferred, its unraveling echoing choices made in secret, each symptom a line in a story now impossible to rewrite. The stability once purchased by questionable means begins to dissipate. Fortunes that seemed secure slip away, assets scatter, and support dissipates like fog under the sun. The web of influence unravels quickly, exposing the emptiness beneath the appearance of abundance, and what was thought to be permanent reveals itself as fleeting. Loyalty once assured proves conditional, as even the most devoted allies turn away when the tide changes. The circle closes in, leaving those at the center alone with the consequences they never believed would come. Escape becomes the priority, and what was once a fortress of trust becomes a place of abandonment. Solitude, at its deepest, is not the absence of company but the withdrawal of meaning. When old strategies fail, and no familiar face remains, the individual is left with only their choices. The silence that settles in is not simply quiet, it is a mirror, reflecting back all that was hidden or denied. In the realm of justice, every wrong delayed is a right waiting for its moment. Hidden truths rise to the surface, evidence emerges, and the final verdict arrives not just as retribution but as restoration. What was denied or lost returns in greater measure, not by chance, but as a fulfillment of promise and perseverance. Opportunities once stolen or blocked reappear, carrying new momentum. The passage once denied now opens wide, and those who once doubted become witnesses to a renewal no one can ignore. Growth resumes, projects flourish, and energy lost is not only restored but multiplied. Gifts once mocked are now celebrated, their value confirmed by results that cannot be denied. Where ridicule sought to sow doubt, out comes sow faith. The very qualities meant to be suppressed now become the very tools of success, proving their worth beyond debate. Bible tales, plot twists, life lessons. Subscribe if you're ready for more. An example set in adversity inspires a new generation. Strength witnessed in survival becomes an invitation for others to rise. What was once a solitary journey turns communal, as light shared grows stronger, drawing together those with similar wounds and dreams. Destruction, when viewed through the lens of time, is not the end but a rebirth. The fires of adversity do not consume, they refine. What was lost in the flames returns renewed, and the ashes underfoot provide the ground for a new creation, one greater than what stood before. Every ending, no matter how absolute, conceals a beginning. What adversaries imagined was a conclusion instead sets the stage for a higher calling. Each obstacle, every act of harm, becomes a building block in a structure destined to rise far above the reach of those who sought to topple it. The future awaits, shaped not by defeat but by the relentless unfolding of purpose.